Let me move on to the Epstein files. Is it true that the black book, Epstein's black book, was in the possession of the FBI director? To the FBI director, you have possession of the black book, right?
That index has been released.
So you have Jeffrey Epstein's black book?
What is known as Jeffrey Epstein's black book has been released by us.
Schiff dropped the Epstein files right in the middle of a Senate hearing, and Patel's composure cracked in real time. What started as an oversight hearing turned into a shouting match that forced the chairman to slam his gavel.
The Epstein list is a single name, and it's Jeffrey Epstein. That's what we're to believe?
That's not what I'm saying.
And at the center of it all was one question Patel spent years promising he would answer, and refused to answer the moment it actually mattered.
In 2024, you were asked by Glenn Beck about Epstein's black book.
It all started on September 16th, 2025. Before Kash Patel ever became FBI director, he was on Glenn Beck's podcast making promises, big ones. He told Beck and millions of listeners that Epstein's black book was sitting under the direct control of the FBI director.
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's black book? And you said, black book, FBI. And he said, but who? That is, I mean, and you said, oh, that's under the direct control of the director of the FBI. That's what you said.
He said the only reason it had not been released was because of who was in it. He told supporters to demand the names, to hold the powerful accountable. People believed him. They helped put him in that chair, and then Schiff walked in with the clip.
Let me move on. Let me move on to the Epstein files.
Schiff played it back in that hearing room and asked the simplest possible question. Now that you are the director, do you have the black book? Patel said the index had been released. That answer should make anyone paying attention pause. The index was a contact list already public through civil litigation years earlier.
Yes or no? You're not answering my question.
I don't have to answer your question yes or no because you're setting up a trap so you can have a media narrative.
I'm not setting up a trap.
And I'm not giving it to you.
That is not what Patel described to Beck. That is not the explosive accountability document he promised would expose pedophiles in power. The moment he finally had the authority to deliver, the black book quietly became a contact list, and the promise quietly disappeared.
Most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these young women to besides himself? And you said, himself, there's no credible information, none. If there were, I would bring the case yesterday that he trafficked to other individuals.
It gets worse from there. Schiff pressed Patel on whether Epstein had trafficked victims to anyone other than himself. Patel's testimony suggested that Epstein only trafficked women to himself, effectively making the celebrated Epstein client list a document with just one name on it. One name.
Was it true that the black book, Epstein's black book, was in the possession of the FBI director?
The black book was in the possession of the FBI.
Okay.
On a list the entire world has been demanding for years. Virginia Roberts Giuffre testified otherwise under oath. Court records say otherwise. Victims said otherwise publicly and repeatedly. But sitting before the Senate, the FBI director looked at all of that and said there were no credible leads pointing to anyone else. That is not a legal finding. That is a choice.
Okay, so now that you're the FBI director, you have possession of the black book, right?
That index has been released.
So you have Jeffrey Epstein's black book?
What is known as Jeffrey Epstein's black book has been released by us.
And you released it. And let me follow up on...
Then Schiff brought up Ghislaine Maxwell, and the room shifted entirely. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, the same man who served as Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer before taking a government position, conducted a 2-day interview with Maxwell. The released transcript showed Maxwell referencing current cabinet members who would be embarrassed by their connections to Epstein. Yet Blanche never followed up by asking who those cabinet members were. Schiff asked Patel to name them. Patel accused him of pulling quotes out of context. No names came. Not one.
Was that true, Mr. Patel?
I'll rely on you quoting it accurately. I did that a couple
Was
of
it
years
true
ago.
What you represented to Mr. Beck and the president's supporters out there?
We need to sit with that for a moment. Ghislaine Maxwell, the most significant living witness in the Epstein case, sat across from the Deputy Attorney General and described sitting cabinet members in connection with Jeffrey Epstein. The follow-up question was never asked, and now the man running the most powerful investigative agency in the country is declining to name those people before Congress. The supporters who spent years chanting for Epstein accountability deserve to understand what just happened in that room.
Investigative leads that were credible to prosecute and investigate any others. I'm specifically
I'm asking
stating
you whether
we
it's
were
your
working
testimony today.
Well, you just read it. And
Blanche. She was transferred from a low-security facility in Florida to a minimum security prison camp in Texas, a facility that does not meet Bureau of Prisons policy requirements for housing convicted sex offenders. Schiff asked Patel directly who authorized that move and why. Patel said the Bureau of Prisons handled it on their own. Think about the timeline. Maxwell names cabinet members. The interview ends. She gets a quieter, softer facility immediately after. And the official story is that nobody in the White House, nobody in the DOJ, and nobody in the FBI had anything to do with it. The Bureau of Prisons simply decided on their own to move her.
People have been terminated at the FBI who failed to uphold the standards that the FBI requires them to uphold.
Did you tell anyone at the FBI?
That explanation does not hold up, and Schiff said so plainly. The most important witness in a decades-long scandal involving powerful men gets rewarded with a comfortable transfer right after a conversation where powerful men were mentioned. And the FBI director cannot tell us who made that call. This is the same man who went on podcasts telling Americans to demand accountability.
FBI employees who they identified who had worked on cases against President Trump would be removed from their jobs. Did you tell that to someone at the FBI?
Now he is the accountability. Before the Epstein section even began, Schiff had already exposed something just as damaging. A lawsuit filed days before the hearing alleged that Patel told a senior FBI official that the president had not forgotten what the FBI did to him, and that firings would continue as a result. Schiff walked Patel through his own confirmation promise. No one would be fired for case assignments. Patel kept saying the word alone. Nobody was fired for case assignments alone. Schiff caught that instantly. Alone means other factors were involved. It is a qualifier that lawyers use when they cannot say no outright. Schiff pushed for a clean yes or no across several attempts. It never came.
Did you terminate or participate in any discipline of any FBI employee in whole or in part because of their work on an investigation of Donald Trump or January 6th?
Schiff held up Patel's own words from his confirmation hearing, the pledge that all FBI employees would be protected against political retribution, and asked him to account for what had happened since. Patel called the questions a trap, a setup for media clips. We have seen that deflection before in this very committee. When a federal official starts describing oversight questions as traps, they have already told you everything about whether they plan to answer them honestly.
So is it your testimony today that in all the Epstein files, that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked no one to anyone but himself? Is that your testimony, Mr.
The hearing collapsed into chaos at the end. The exchange over Epstein grew so heated that Chairman Chuck Grassley was forced to bang his gavel and demand silence from both men. Patel called Schiff a disgrace, an utter coward, and the biggest fraud to ever sit in the Senate. He accused him of lying about Russiagate on January 6th. He told him to run to the cameras. All of that erupted in response to a question about a prison transfer. One question about where Ghislaine Maxwell sleeps at night produced the most unhinged moment in the entire hearing. That tells you something.
Epstein didn't traffic anyone else.
Did he traffic any young woman to someone other than himself? That was Mr. Kennedy's question, Senator Kennedy's question.
The information that 3 administrations have had access to have made determination.
Schiff said afterward that he believed Patel realized how indefensible his position was, and that attacking Democrats personally was an attempt to distract from answers he could not give. Whether that reading is right, the record speaks clearly enough. A man who built his entire public brand on exposing Epstein sat before Congress, refused to name the cabinet members Maxwell mentioned, could not explain her prison transfer, and called the senator asking those questions a coward. The people who believed his promises in 2024 are still waiting for the accountability he sold them.
And an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
He said, "Put on your big boy pants." He said, "Let us know who the pedophiles are." Now he is the director. And the only person he named in that hearing room was Adam Schiff, a man who built his career demanding transparency, walked into a congressional hearing, and refused to provide any. That is not an accusation. That is the transcript. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a hearing that deserves this much attention.